You know, I've been cooped up in the house for a long while now, and I don't know if it's psychosis or something else, but I've been really looking at my past a lot lately. It could also be all those games I look at on the channel.
Watch your other videos.
Who knows, but the thing that matters is that gives me more ideas for videos. During this particular trip down memory lane, I finished my video on the SpongeBob PC games and I started thinking about other games that are based on other properties. In particular, I was thinking about movie games and how bad a lot of them are. But you know what? There's a really solid movie game that I see no one talk about, and that's what this video's about. That's right, I'm talking about the Cars video game. Wait, someone did that already? Oh, and that's like an in-joke for his channel? Okay, not bad. Instead, we're going to be looking at the Over the Hedge video game, which I feel is good in the same ways that the Cars video game is. So, let's get into it. Over the Hedge was a movie by DreamWorks that came out in 2006 about animals that rob from the suburbs in order to get food for hibernation and also some cool stuff to make life easier. This was all brought about by a sly raccoon named RJ who convinces the animals stuck in their ways to adapt to the ever-changing world. It's not the greatest animation that DreamWorks made, that's just not fair. It also isn't the greatest animation out around that time, but it is a solid movie and I remember it fondly. Plus, the song Family of Me is absolutely amazing and I still listen to it occasionally. If you haven't been blessed to hear it, you should definitely give it a listen like right now. I'll wait. Just pause, I guess. Oh, you're back? Cool. So as was the case with a lot of movie games around this time, the game came out really quickly after the movie came out, which means that the devs were given the script or something beforehand to run with, and you can kind of tell, which is a good segue into talking about the story of the game. One thing I like and appreciate about the game is that it's more of a sequel to the game, basically just Over the Hedge 2. The game is broken into chapters and the first one is basically retelling the end of the movie very quickly. Like they just zoom past it with the assumption that you've seen the movie, I guess. It's so bare bones in the sense that it took me a second to actually realize what it was. That's mainly why I said that they were given a script or something and possibly not even the whole thing. Anyway, after retelling that part of the story, the game jumps a year in the future, and really, not much has changed, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The animals are way more cool with stealing from the suburbs, and they've gotten really comfortable with all the new technologies and such. For example, the porcupines and the old possum Heather are pretty good with the technological aspect of things, and occasionally chime in throughout the game to help the players with where to go. I like it mostly because that really was the logical growth for all these characters. Thankfully, they didn't reset the characters to how they were at the start of the movie, and the way they are in the game feels right. Plus, it helps that the dialogue is actually pretty good and on point with how the movie was. In particular, I enjoyed the bands between characters and the little interactions you hear in the hub area. It all feels natural and it's a nice addition for people who enjoyed the movie. Another thing I should mention is that while you get more out of it if you watch the movie, you can still enjoy it without having seen it. The humor is solid enough to hold on its own, especially for a family-friendly game. So what about the rest of the story? It consists of the gang doing heists and operations to get things for the log before hibernation. They had food and stuff already, but it got stolen by, I believe, the exterminator? I'll be honest, I was zoning out for a second there. Anyway, in the process of all these heists, the exterminator, or the sniffer, creates a bigger business called Vermitech that possesses animals to take down the more problematic animals. It makes sense though. RJ and his family of animals are running rampant in the suburbs. They're stealing TVs and destroying everything just because they want it. I mean, I would want them dead if they were robbing all my food and entertainment devices. Also, this exterminator went really nuts with the possessing. He really got everyone except for this small group of animals. He even had freaking bears working for him. I mean, he won if you ask me. Why even bother with this small militia of animals? He could have moved on to bigger and better things. Shoot, where's the FBI? This exterminator made a mind control device and no one is impressed? Look, all I'm saying is that the world is lucky he stopped the animals. But he messed with the animals and they destroyed his livelihood and the game just kinda ends. Like, it just boots you back to the hub. I wasn't bothered by it, but it was kinda funny. Overall, I would put this story on the level of a TV special sequel and there's nothing wrong with that. So what about the gameplay? It's just alright. It's an action movie game from the mid-2000s, so it's not like I was expecting much of anything from it. You have an attack button that you can charge, a ranged move that really needs to be charged if you want to do any damage with it, and a special move that's a keep away move if you press it, and an AoE attack if you hold it. Like 90% of the time you'll be spamming the attack button, especially when you get the finishing attack. I have no idea what the best move is, but at least with the basic attack, you're not left open like with the other moves. As you go through the game, you'll clear objectives which will unlock things including new moves. There's the finishing attack, the ground pound, which is trash because as far as I could tell it's exactly the same as a standing special move. And there's the second level of charge that I literally didn't find out about until I already finished the game, like right after I got booted back to the hub. I'm sure it would have helped, but oh well. So at first, I played this game on hard difficulty because that's just what I do when they give me the chance, and I can safely say that playing on hard severely lessens the fun of the game. Enemies are damage sponges, and what that means is that you're spamming attack a lot more. There's not any more thought going into it, and it's worse because the knockback is so high to the point that a lot of the times, all your attacks don't land. Thankfully, a lot of levels don't require you to fight everything. You can run straight past them if you want, and it's nice to have that option, especially in places where there are a lot of traps and such. It allows you to not worry about combat, and you can focus on the better aspects of the game. Well, mainly the one, but I'll get into it in a sec. That's also why the worst sections of the game are the ones where you have to defeat a certain amount of enemies. It forces the combat to be in the spotlight, and that is just not this game's strength. It's kind of similar to the Shrek PC game where there were parts where you had to beat enemies to proceed. It sucked there too, but at least it was a chance to use potions, and there's nothing like that here. Of course, there's also the return to the hedge parts that are kind of like this, but at the very least that part tries to mix it up every time. Meanwhile, the platforming is fine and standard for the most part. There's a depth issue at times, but it does feel good to get the right amount of height and extend it with an air attack. Nothing is really frustrating in the platforming realm, save for one part of the amusement park which feels like playing Crash Bandicoot Remastered. Also, sprinkled throughout the game are sections where you're doing something different, whether it's a dodge and jump in an on-rails segment or a mini-game where you have to hit the button, as it's called, and it's always a nice break from the action. To top off the gameplay, there is some slight stealthing and a dedicated stealth button, but it doesn't get much action, especially if you don't care about clearing objectives. Yeah, they're pretty decent, certainly better than the fighting, and it fits well into the idea of Over the Hedge. What also fits well with Over the Hedge is the level design. I really like the levels in this game for the most part, and the name of the game is stopping these darn pests from doing what they please. The levels are sprinkled with traps and devices used to sense intruders. It really feels like the owners are truly desperate to catch the main characters, and in a way, it's a humorous visual gag. Each time I went to the suburbs, I was ready to see what contraption was set up to try and stop me. My favorite was the one where two dogs were set up, and when they barked, it set off a shot at me. I really have to wonder how that came about. To be fair though, some of the traps are pretty effective. It makes you try and focus more, or at least be a little bit more cautious, but I did none of those things. Ever. Also, you get to destroy everything they own, so you can really mess their day up. In fact, you're encouraged to do it because the objects tend to drop items that increase your health or energy if you get enough of them. It all culminates into the final level where you have a lot of traps, especially in the elevator, and you fight almost all the enemies up to this point. Another cool thing about the suburbs is that while it is definitely linear, it still gives a feeling of openness due to trap placement and how you can see the whole picture, whether it's all the houses on the streets or the big backyards connected through holes in the fences. That's not all the levels though, there is some variety. Namely, there's an amusement park that is split between a shooting gallery and an actual roller coaster. Especially for the shooting gallery, they took the concept and really ran with it. There are even some sections that are shooting galleries in their own way. And the roller coaster boss fight is cool because it's the only fight that keeps you moving forward like a roller coaster. Then there's the cave level, and that level sucks. First of all, it being a cave already makes it kind of bland. There's no openness or anything. It's more of a straight line into a circle where you need to fight a bunch of people to progress, which you know I already hate. Then they decide to add one of the most time-consuming enemies, the armadillo. You start off fighting one of them and it takes a while because it keeps going into a ball and rolling around, and then what happens? They throw 4 more at you, and it just keeps going. There's also a section where you have to get keys, and I only bring it up because the AI truly could not handle being in that area. Over and over, it would just jump into the endless abyss hoping for a way out of the game. Of course, there are some I didn't talk about, but these are the ones that stick out. I talked about it a little before, but there are a lot of objectives and things that get unlocked if you do a certain amount of them. It promotes replayability because frankly, a lot of the side objectives are challenge runs. Things like don't take too much damage or finding all the collectibles. And speaking of collectibles, there are a lot of them. They're just littered everywhere and it's really hard to miss them. The coolest ones to get are the concept arts and the comic strips. Honestly, I didn't know Over the Hedge was originally a comic strip, so that was something. The concept art seemed to predate the movie, so that was cool to see, and the comic strips were a nice wholesome laugh, boomer humor if you will, stuff you read in the newspaper. Aside from that, there are mini games as well, racing, bumper cars, and a shooting gallery type thing. Disregard everything but the bumper cars because that one is amazing. It's really funny to slam into someone only to blow yourself up. Oh, and I don't know where to add this, but it was great seeing Shrek Super Slam, and I think Shark Tale every time I would go to the hub. And as I got more electronics, there would be more ads. There was even one time where the characters were discussing their favorite characters in Madagascar. I get that it's all DreamWorks, but still, it was something to see. And with that, I think I'll end it here. Overall, I enjoyed myself with this game even though it dragged near the end because it started to rely on fighting a lot of the enemies to progress. If you have any other cool or interesting games I should try out, leave it in the comments so I can check it out. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe because it does help the channel a lot. But before you go and listen to Family of Me, have a good day.